How do everybody? Got quite an interesting story here. I was, believe it or not, going to do something completely different, but this one caught my eye, and it's not anything overly shocking. But I do think it's interesting, at least from the headline, and I think it warrants investigation and seeing if I think maybe on personal levels we might be able to learn something from this and maybe see if it's worthwhile with things like this maybe being highlighted more often. Carl Benjamin, and for those of you who don't know, Carl Benjamin is Sargon of Akkad. He's the founder of the lotuseaters.com. Apologises to MP Jess Phillips over I wouldn't even force myself on her joke. And he says, I want to set a better example. And it was that caught my eye because them two have had quite the feud for quite the number of years over this whole thing. And he made that joke, and it was obviously very crass. And I do think as well that she did weaponise it for political expedience, because obviously members of the public like that sort of stuff. However, he was quite the fool to say something like that in such a public manner, because he was running for, I think it was a member of European Parliament, if I remember correctly, and I think it was for UKIP. When he said it, he said, I wouldn't even force myself on her. I'm not going to use the obvious word for YouTube purposes. And then I think he followed it up another day. We say there isn't enough beer in the world to make me want to go there, or words to the effect of. I could be wrong. I'm trying to pull that out of my deep memory. It's been a long time since I've heard that, but that is basically words to the effect of, with the second line being a reply back to her after she commented on his initial thing. I'm not saying it wasn't that, I'm not saying that it wasn't necessarily hurtful for her, but I do think she definitely hammed it up to maximise the political advantage of somebody saying that to her. And I think Mr. Benjamin was an absolute fool for saying that and giving her the ammunition to fight back at him. And obviously this time around this election, when he's been talking again, she's obviously dug it all back up again years later. So anyway, let's get on with the story. YouTuber Carl Benjamin has apologised to MP Jess Phillips for a controversial joke he made several years ago, saying, and I quote, I want to set a better example. Now that is quite good from him as well, because he does go on quite often about what he calls dadisms, and he's trying to he wants to get a sort of movement set where older men try and set a better example for how the world actually ought to be, and try and get away from this whole madness that we find ourselves living in at the moment with the way people are going on about hurt feelings and you can't say that to me and blah blah blah. So he's trying to get a more traditional approach back into life, which isn't in and of itself a bad thing. And part of that is holding your hands up and admitting when you've done something wrong. So I do actually agree with that. And not only that as well, but thinking about it, I suppose in some ways, because she's weaponised, well, allegedly, I believe allegedly that she's weaponised it to a certain degree. It also, by apologising, and I don't just mean, oh, I'm sorry, I mean, I do feel that he may have done this graciously and wholeheartedly. You kind of disarm that as well, and maybe moving forward, better things may come from this. And maybe she may become a bit of a more understanding person as well from it. Who knows? In 2016, Benjamin joked he wouldn't even force himself. Phillips in 2019 posted an online video suggesting that with enough pressure I might cave. I don't remember that, sorry, I shouldn't laugh. It's not funny. It's just shock. It's the ridiculousness of it. It's just, it's either laugh or cry, I guess, isn't it? Benjamin, who gained a large YouTube following under the name Sargon of Akkad, failed in his bid to get elected to the European Parliament as a UKIP candidate in 2019 after his comments about Phillips. Right, there we go, yeah. Speaking to Stephen Edgington on GB News America, he said there's been a real change in British politics recently. That is absolutely correct. In the last 10 years, we've had 2 sitting MPs killed, one from Labour, one from Conservatives. And also, as I've shared a video the other day, British politics is just getting wild. People are becoming very sectarian, and there is, I believe, an actual escalation of feelings, and I do believe actions maybe soon could be happening. So I do think he's sincere in this, and I think maybe trying to build bridges so that maybe as a nation we can become a little bit more united to help tackle the radical elements in our society on both sides of politics. So Jess Phillips herself highlighted this in her acceptance speech for a victory in 2024 election, in which she points out that there's been a severe coarsening in British politics. Yeah, I shared that as part of that last video in that speech. She's nearly crying in that video as well. If you do watch that last video, the opening part of the video where there's a massive crowd, that's Jess Phillips, and then it's her and then I cut to the interview with Channel 4 News immediately after it. You can see she was very, very shook by it, and she was very scared. I will criticise her for one thing, though, is that, and even up to now, since then, she is not admitting that those people who are doing that are Islamists. She's just saying men. And I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that if they were white men with swastikas on their arms, she would have no qualms whatsoever in pointing out the ideology and the group of people being associated with the far right whatsoever. And I do find it very strange that she won't point out that it's extreme Islamists who are haranguing her and who have been slashing tyres of people helping her and things like that. Maybe it's to do with votes and she's scared of losing votes. I don't know. Only she can answer that question, I'm afraid. I mean, maybe it's Stockholm Syndrome. Who knows? I don't know. Honestly, it really struck a chord with me because I felt that, well, that's obviously true. She was putting on a very brave face about these things. Yeah, it's, I mean, like I say, if you watch it again, that video, you can see that she's putting on a brave face. But man, she's close to tears in that. She is very, very scared. Very, very scared. And she's also been through Parliament as well when they were inside and all the Palestine people were outside. And Lindsay Hoyle was nearly in tears as well while that was happening, the Speaker of the House, so she was inside when that was happening. They thought that a mob was going to break into Parliament and possibly they may have felt that they may have been dragged out into the street and had unquestionable things done to them. Who knows? So there's been a lot of pressure on MPs. So I do feel that maybe Carl Benjamin here has made the right choice in possibly offering an olive branch to move. I'm not saying that they should be friends or even agree with each other, but at least to move forward and maybe try and at least be a little bit more understanding of each other's points of view. In other media interviews afterwards, she explained that she wasn't intimidated. I think it was evident that she was because there seems to be a real hard edge underneath British politics now that didn't exist back when I was being very rude to Phillips. I mean, that's what it was. He's right there. He was being incredibly rude and incredibly crass. And it's the sort of joke that you may make with your friends behind closed doors, but it's not really something that you want to be saying on national TV to the entire nation, and I'm not saying I'm not guilty of making crash jokes myself, but I try to choose my audience as best I can with that, and I definitely don't want to be saying it to the wider audience, at least in this age that I am now. Probably would have done when I was younger, but I was an idiot. That's part of growing up, I guess. The issue has been the injection of foreign sectarian politics and the liberal principles that underpin British political life no longer obtain when I insulted Jess Phillips horrifically. It was against the background of stable English political life in which I was obvious to everyone involved. In which it was obvious to everyone involved. Yeah, well, he's made a lot of assumptions there, and what he's done is he's projected his own worldview onto a wider crowd, and that's something a lot of people, and I even myself, struggle with. But people tend to do, they tend to project their own views, and in fact, you see this quite a lot with people who sort of support like I'm not saying people who directly support just Phillips, but people tend to on the left, white, what may be called white middle class liberals, where they will excuse the bad behaviour of people who have got darker coloured skin to them. But then when they look at people who have white skin and are generally of the same sort of back, not even Europeans, but people who say who are British, indigenous British, so to speak, at least in this country, they'll hold them to a much higher standard, and they will not tolerate comparable behaviour from those people. And I think a lot of that is they're projecting their own worldviews and their own what should we say, standards and values and morals onto those people that look like them. And I think they find disgusting that those people who they see as being the same as them don't behave like they do, but they're able to more easily understand people who don't look like them behaving in a different manner, and they're able to compartmentalise that. Maybe it's midwittery, I don't know, but that's what I feel is happening a lot of the time. But anyway, let's get back to this. She was calling me various names. She was calling me various names like misogynist or whatever, and I was insulting towards her. It was evident. Yeah, well, he took the bait, didn't he? This is the thing as well. And again, this is my personal views on it. Jess Phillips comes from I'd say, a political philosophy of feminism where it's very easy for them to weaponise certain things, so they can throw out insults against men that they don't like misogynist or bully or whatever they want to say. And then if a man is to then directly respond in kind, or like Carl Benjamin did by saying he wouldn't even, she can then straight away start playing the victim card, and you've lost straight away in that one. You've absolutely lost, unfortunately. So I'm not saying that's right, but that is just the reality of it. Yeah, so she was calling me various names like misogynist or whatever, and I was insulting towards her. It was evidence that it was only going to be words. That's all it was ever going to be, and I don't think that's evident with what's happening now. Um, Terrible what's happening at the moment in politics. I'm really concerned about it. I think that both myself and Jess have contributed to this atmosphere of political causing. That I'm very impressed that he said that as well. That he's not absolving himself of anything here, and I think he's absolutely right. I do think both sides are responsible for the causing of politics, and it's nice that he's actually offering an olive branch out of this to try and reverse or at least try and stabilise the current state of politics. Be the change you want to see in the world, after all. And it occurs to me around 2022, after a conversation I had with Peter Hitchens on the subject, that actually maybe I should apologise to. A good advice from Peter Hitchens there. Good advice. Not that I agree with Peter Hitchens on everything, but you know what? He's at the very least, he's obviously an elderly gentleman, and he's got a lot of wisdom. Whether you'll agree with him on his politics or not, he's not got to that point in his life and had the success that he's had by being an absolute imbecile and a buffoon and a fool. He added, it doesn't matter whether she accepts it. One of the reasons I hadn't apologised yet is because I genuinely thought she would just throw it back in my face, but it doesn't matter if she does. That's very, very grown up of him as well. That's actually a very mature way of looking at it. It doesn't matter if the person accepts it or not. If it's a genuine apology, at least he's said that, and then that's up to her to accept that or not. I feel she will do, though. She's not although I've said what I've said about her, I don't think she's a genuinely bad person, and I do think what she does is actually in genuine good faith. Although I disagree with her for doing it, and I may sound contradictory to what I've said already, I do think she's coming from a good place. I just think she's got horrendous ideas of how to actually fix something, how to fix things. What matters is that it's the right thing to do, unconditionally apologise. I've personally been through a long period of growth and reflection. I've become a father many times over. I've got myself a good education now, and I'm a business owner. And I look around now at the men that I was, the man I was then, and I think about the man I am now and all the responsibilities I have and the kind of social fabric we're living in. Lead by example. That's a very, very wise thing to do. There's nothing wrong with admitting you were wrong. I realised, yes, I was contributing to this. So it is without any kind of reservation, I'd like to say I am sorry to Jess Phillips, and I shouldn't have made such rude and obviously offensive statement. That's very, very humble to do so. I'm just waiting for him to admit that he's a Christian next as well, because I feel that'll be his next story arc. If we would like me to apologise in person, I'm more than happy to do so. I'm not going to explain what or make any kind of excuses for that. It was just wrong and I shouldn't have done it. And I'd like to frankly present a better example to my sons as they grow older. Fantastic. You know what? Becoming a father has obviously had a very profound impact on his life. And I think he's obviously realised, my goodness, my sons may grow up and see this and may think that that's acceptable behaviour, and I don't want them doing that mistake. So that is fantastic that he's doing that as a father, setting a great example for his kids. Earlier this year, Phillips wrote a letter to former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and asked him to deselect Liz Truss as a candidate after she gave an interview to Connor Tomlinson on Lord Seaters, a network Benjamin is associated with. Well, he's not associated with it, it's his network. But it is right. And they were all trying to say that Liz Truss was getting interviewed by Carl Benjamin. Everybody at the time who was going against it, and there was I think quite a few legal threats going around for retractions, including Kay Burley from Sky News made a full retraction and corrected herself publicly on that as well. She wrote, the impact men like Benjamin have on politics cannot be understated. No, it can't be understated, but neither can the impact that she has on politics either, as a sitting MP. Men like Benjamin make female MPs live in fear. Well, I don't agree with that. While discouraging women from standing in future, no, I think people who are slashing women's tyres and going to their acceptance speeches, trying to intimidate in a violent and haranguing manner, and maybe going around forming gangs and forcing themselves onto underage girls, I'd probably say are more complicit in that than Carl Benjamin making a crass joke. Not that I'm trying to excuse him making that joke, but let's get real about this. Weakening our democracy in the future. She added, it is clear that anybody willing to appear on this hateful platform is not suitable to be a candidate for any political party. But I don't think that's her choice to make, really. I think everybody should be, and I think shy of committing actual treason and some of the most serious crimes like interfering with children or murder, really, I don't think anybody should really be excluded from engaging in politics. I really don't, because at the end of the day, we all live in the country and we all should have a right to run it if we can get enough votes. That's what I feel democracy should be. Even Reform UK deselected one of its candidates over his harmful views on work as a content creator for low seaters was exposed. That's the end of the article. GB News. I'll put it in below. Do read it yourself. There is a video on there, so watch that. Make your own mind up. You don't have to agree with anything that I've said. If you found that interesting, useful, insightful, anything like that, please do like, subscribe to the channel, and please do put a comment below as well, especially if you don't agree with me. I'm open to people disagreeing with me. I don't claim to be the fountain of all knowledge. I'm quite happy to say I could be wrong on my opinions, and if you have a strong enough argument, I am willing to change my mind. But I'm going to leave it there. I mean, blinking hell, we've become it's become 15 minutes, so I'm going to close it down and get off. Thank you and goodbye.